Gentlemen and ladies of this craft, welcome back to this thing of ours in another episode of the Chronicles of Gameology. I'm your host, Neil K. Marcellus, and yeah, that's checkmate. You know, it is said that a major league pitcher never loses the thrill and gratification of seeing a qualified hitter slide up and make their presence known when stepping up to the plate, exercising their opportunity to handle business. And this type of audacity and spunk that a major league pitcher exemplifies is a direct derivative of a player who has come to grips in being fully bought in and a willing participant. Because this type of individual whom I just described clearly comprehends that the dundada and the prestige that comes from or come along with being a shot caller is a two-edged sword, of which one side of the edge is power and the other one is responsibility. And both edges are as sharp as razor blades, which, by the way, automatically disqualifies any handling of this double-edged buzzsaw by a hand that is just casual, cowardly, or just straight up treacherous. And this brings me to the title and thumbnail of this particular episode, where it speaks to guys who falls up under the category of being a square, who is overly eager to play catch with females, who they refer to, by the way, as 304s, or women who is overly concerned about receiving the lion's share of whatever a man can offer. In the case of this thumbnail, this is being symbolized as a woman with two catcher mitts on each of her hands, indicating that a woman like this is all about the resources flowing in one direction and one direction only, and that's her direction. But square men who are always griping about women who espouse this type of characteristic. But the truth of the matter is that the onus is upon them, the men, to set the standard and guardrails that would entice women such as these to place them on a higher pedestal and in a more prestigious status. You see, you will hear me speak often about how this street philosophy is very nuanced and complex. And it's the exact reason why there's different stages and degrees and levels that make up its practice and execution. Because different activities requires a divergence of specialties and temperaments and skill sets. Now, these levels, as they being showcased on this image, on the right with the different colors signifying different ranks and abilities, but these different stages and degrees kicks into gear at the apprentice level, the private level, then proceeds all the way up to being a general, a major league shot caller. And as I just said, different activities cries out for different kinds of temperaments, and the type of temperament that is conducive in handling 304s, or the type of women that's being portrayed on the thumbnail of this episode, square guys just doesn't possess the type of shot calling expertise that these type of women will find intriguing and fascinating. As a result, the type of relationship that these kind of women choose to have with square guys is strictly a pay to play type of agreement. Now, the importance of the art of shot calling, which is the ability to manage a double-edged sword scenario, can be gleaned by shining a little spotlight on the elements that produces a major league pitcher. As it happens, the highest salaries in professional baseball are traditionally reserved for pitchers, for the simple fact that good hitting do indeed win games, but good pitching wins championships. You know what I'm saying? This is the reason that the most prestigious piece of real estate on a baseball diamond is the pitcher's plate, evident by the baseball regulations requiring that it be 18 feet across in distance and that it be 10 inches above the level of home plate. Elevating the pitcher's plate creates a downward angle, making it harder for batters to pick up pitches. When a pitcher throws a baseball from this type of elevated position, it's like sending a ball on a roller coaster ride deep down a steep hill. This angle adds gravity to the ball, making fastball seems faster and a curveball, well, curve even more. Then by the same token, executing the Don Dada, this power and ability of being a shot caller, which is the ability to manage double-edged sword situations, is predicated on a man's position and his ability to use gravity as well. The thing is that originally shot calling and men who was very skilled at dealing with double-edged sword situations were kings and warriors, which required them in some shape, form, or fashion to be noble and have a highly driven instinct for follow-through. So for a man in this day and time to utilize gravity to his advantage, he needs to have established a sturdy center of gravity, which from this street philosophy is defined as a man's central or dominant focus of contemplation, his code. And as a result, a man is afforded a have it both ways type of mentality. Because here's the thing, having a center of gravity sounds like to one who isn't ganged up to be just simple instance that deals with the principles of balance. But balance from a gameologist's point of view is always active and dynamic, not static, nor is it absolute, but always in proportion to something else. Ergo, the swag of having at one's disposal a have it both ways type of mentality. This is due to the fact of what I say frequently on this channel, and that is this street philosophy, this game is very nuanced and complex. Check out this image I have up at this moment. A key article of success that one must implement when maneuvering on this playing field we call life is to manage outcomes. And so, one of the many applications that a practitioner of this craft implements when applying their shot calling or double-edged sword capabilities is in supervising the payoffs and consequences that comes from the activity transpiring upon this gridiron, this playing field, to their favor and to the betterment of their position. And so as this image is indicating, it's not only power and responsibility that encompasses a shot calling scenario, but also a practitioner will in addition have to call the shots on navigating ends and means, which then catapults a practitioner to a different stratosphere and status, which then will empower the practitioner to possess a have it both ways type of mentality. But there's a vital element that makes all of this work as for executing a have it both ways type of mentality that I need to share with you. But before I do, let me first break down real quick how a lot of square men get their asses in the sling, so to speak, by doing the exact opposite of what I just went over. But squares get their asses in the sling when they take on a double or nothing approach when engaging and interacting with women whom they have labeled 304s or gold diggers. In adopting such a boneheaded approach as a double or nothing course of action, seasoned OGs taught me that this is a sure sign that a man has fully been suckered into the world of his own illusion, and is definitely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, by and large deactivating and ripping the plug straight out the wall that supercharges his common sense and his ability to make grown-up decisions, especially surrounding the women he fucks with. Now this double or nothing tomfoolery goes into motion and is kicked into gear when a man who is a square concludes that his dignity and by default his importance have been squandered and made worthless by how he has conducted himself in the middle or somewhere after he gets finished getting his pockets turned inside out by women such as these that's being portrayed on this image. And because of this cold bucket of ice chilly reality, he then decides to keep his fingers crossed and goes at it again with the same goofy ass conduct as before, hoping that she would just see the light and place him on a pedestal in a higher level of importance. This is what seasoned OGs taught me to refer to as square logic, false positives and false negatives. It's a square illogical and oversimplified way of making sense of a much more complicated and nuanced entanglement. Now, remember a few moments ago I said that there's a vital component that I was going to reveal that adds to the functionality of a man possessing a have it both ways type of mentality. And so this vital component is exposed when one applies this cheat code or code breaker right here that I use on this channel frequently to gather principles from disciplines such as chess and poker to show how these disciplines have application to real life scenarios and to this street craft known as game. Likewise, this cheat code applies to the game of baseball as well. As for the principles that one can use to be successful and victorious when maneuvering on this playing field we call life. You see, in baseball, this vital component is revealed when you look at how a batter in baseball is trying to figure out how a pitcher is intending on implementing his pitching plan to strike him out. And so from a totally different perspective, the pitcher is scanning and looking for weaknesses in the batter and trying to determine ways to exploit and capitalize on these weaknesses to get the batter out of the game as well. Therefore, to be a capable manager of a Major League Baseball team, this manager must possess a multifaceted perspective. And so by the same token, a practitioner of this craft must possess a multidimensional outlook as well in order to lay claim and benefit off of having it both ways type of mentality. Check out this brand new image I'm showing at this moment. Now, this vital component that I emphasized that was missing earlier, that puts a practitioner in position to utilize the multiple segments that comes from the ability of shot calling and managing double-edged scenarios, and as a result, ingratiates the handler of such skills to be equipped at possessing a having it both ways type of mentality. All of what I just said comes down to having a multidimensional perspective, as this image is showing. First and foremost, when a man is gamed up and street savvy, his observational get down, his ability to peep shit out from a variety of angles. This takes place from two distinct yet unique vantage points. One side of these two unique vantage points can be considered to be on the right, and the other one can be on the left, as this image is indicating. But these two vantage points can be like two individuals looking at the same object, but receiving two totally different pictures based upon two totally different vantage points. This is being played out on this image by one individual seeing the letter W, while the other individual sees the same object, but views it as being the letter M. This ties back into what I was discussing earlier about how a man's center of gravity. If a man hasn't developed this multidimensional perspective, then 50% of what makes up reality is cut off and tucked away, leaving him severely restricted and narrow-minded. Furthermore, alongside of what I just laid out for you, but these two vantage points have a somewhat of a top and bottom venue and location that gives both of them an unparalleled view on how to look at the playing field. These different venues and locations can be conceptualized as an outer and inner visual stronghold, as indicated by the two circles positioned by the two individuals on this image. Notice that these two circles are set in two totally different directions. The red one is embedded where it points inwardly, and the blue one is embedded where it points outwardly. This calls a practitioner to see the playing field, which we call life, from the inside out, giving them a holistic perspective, and from the outside in, which is a dualistic perspective. Now, I need you to zero in on the left side of this image for a moment. You see, one of the major issues that a lot of square men have in navigating their intimate dealings when it comes to females who they consider 304s or gold diggers is that women like these consider square men to be fairly easy and of no challenge, at having their common sense reverse engineered and then taken advantage of. This happens as a direct spillover of a man's inability to exercise his dualistic perspective. This red circle where the arrows are directed inwardly. This supplies him with the unique zoom in capacity and capabilities that can probe and dissect to figure out what isn't so obvious and what is hidden beneath the surface, supercharging his spider senses, so to speak, at recognizing the WTFs, the what the fuck and hell to the null, calling balls and strike capabilities. This particular perceptive power turns a woman on because it adds mystery and excitement to a man's persona when he's able to call out and give verbal expression to her attempted shystiness. So when she comes across a man who is open and unreserved about verbalizing the details of her bullshit, then this touches her deep within her psyche to the very sweet spot of her soul. But all of this depends on if a man can operate the various switches and levels that gives him the full access to this multi-dimensional perspective, this having it both ways type of mentality. As a final note, to close out this episode, there exists this fucked up sentiment that a lot of guys who are squares have wholeheartedly embraced that comes from a lot of goofy ass self-help gobbledygook that teaches if a man isn't over his head, then how will he ever know how capable he can ever be? This provides a lot of square men the false machismo to think that they can get women who they have labeled 304s or gold diggers to jump through hoops and put them on a pedestal strictly on the ching ching and their ducats alone. Whereas this street philosophy puts a practitioner up on game and educates them that there are different stages and levels to this shit. Because like a seasoned OG told me long time ago in my early development in the street craft, that this game and the playing field is like an onion consisting of many layers, like a fabric consisting of many threads. So true that, and know that complexity need not be an obstacle that a practitioner dreads, but the direction that a practitioner truly needs and hungers for. Now, that's checkmate. Thanks for watching. We'll definitely catch you on the next episode.